Hi, I'm Dr. Ed Knights, and I'm here to bring you local information about coping with the coronavirus epidemic. I'm an internist at Acton Medical, where I take care of patients over 69 years old and first responders. With me today are Dr. Cindy Dorsey, a clinical psychologist from Concord, and Acton Medical's two social workers, Carrie, Leggett, and Brooke, Markt. We will be talking about meeting your basic needs: food, shelter, transportation, safety, getting medical care, and getting help with psychological problems and needs. We will also talk about how you can help others. So I'd like to start now by calling on Brooke and Carrie to talk about meeting your basic needs.
Sure. So we thought we'd start by addressing some of the very basic needs that might be coming up for people during this time. When we talk about coping through a crisis or a difficult situation, it's helpful to have a strong base foundation, assessing if our basic human needs are being met, right? Food and water, shelter and warmth, safety and security. It's hard to focus on coping when you might be worried about where your next meal will come from or where you'll lay your head at night. And this doesn't mean that once you check the box on basic needs, you're ready to move on. It's more of a fluid dynamic. But it's important to be keeping in mind, are all of my basic needs being met right now? So let's first talk about access to food and water. Many people in our community rely on various sources for their next meal, whether that means from the grocery store, restaurants, delivery or volunteer services, congregate meal sites, food pantries. All of these sources have had to make accommodations, which leaves us concerned about where and how we'll access our food. So I want to arm you with some resource information specific to the Acton area. Acton-Boxborough Regional School District is offering bagged lunches to individuals and families Monday through Friday for pickup between 11:30 and 1 p.m. Outside the main entrance of the high school. The Acton Neighbor Brigade volunteer service is offering delivery of these meals for people with illness or transportation barriers. The Acton Food Pantry remains open on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Open Table Pantry in Maynard is implementing a drive-through pantry service during their regular operating hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Loaves and Fishes Pantry in Devens is offering bags to go during their normal hours. And the Stowe Food Pantry is offering a drive-up food service on April 4th and 5th. And Meals on Wheels through the Council on Aging is running as usual. Many of the community meal sites are now offering meals to go instead of the sit-down suppers. For example, Community Supper at Mount Calvary Lutheran Church is offering carry-out meals on during their Wednesday evening time. And the Acton Senior Center is offering takeout meals instead of their congregate lunch meal. And many of the local grocery stores are offering designated hours for seniors as an option if they feel more comfortable avoiding crowds of all ages, to hopefully minimize any exposure to this coronavirus from others who may or may not be showing symptoms. So this is a lot of information about local access to food, most of which can be found online or by calling your town hall or town social worker. There's also a number that Project Bread runs, the food source hotline, that has information on your nearest food pantry and eligibility for SNAP benefits or food stamps, if that feels like a more accessible resource for you, and that number will be listed. Another human need that makes up a stable foundation is shelter, where we have access to warmth and rest, right? For humans, we need sleep. It's hard to focus on the next day or the big picture or to problem solve if we're not getting appropriate sleep or rest. And when we talk about shelter, this often depends on financial stability. So right now, many people are worried about what will happen if I fall behind on my bills and can't afford my rent or mortgage. Will I face eviction? Although there haven't been any bills passed in Massachusetts at this point about banning any evictions during this COVID-19 time, it is important to keep in mind that there is a legal process required for any eviction in the state of Massachusetts. And it's important to know your rights as a tenant and know that this legal process must be followed. At this point, housing courts have postponed any non-emergency proceedings for a few weeks, and this might change over the next few days as many other cities and states have made changes. But if you do find yourself facing eviction or immediate housing loss, please contact your town social worker. In this time of coronavirus, many people have already been impacted financially. Some people have been forced out of their jobs, and some might be worried about the long-term impact of this all. If you are someone who has been laid off as a result of this situation, it can be helpful to ask your employer or HR department if they are still intact, if they offer any support around applying for unemployment. There have been some issues with the unemployment website recently, but it does seem to be up and running at this point. But if you are having any trouble navigating this process, you can also reach out to your town social worker to help with that process. At this point, there seem to be several emergency relief funds that are starting to crop up, specific to industries or locale, but there's very little out there right now. The town social worker might be familiar with grants or emergency funding that becomes available in the future, but I don't think we're quite there just yet. I've mentioned the town social workers a lot so far, but they are a really great resource for our communities. Besides helping with any immediate housing or shelter concerns, they're also familiar with utility assistance programs, which seem to be up and running so far for this year. If you're struggling to pay for any of your utilities. The town social worker might also be familiar with and have information about the local transportation options in your area. And at this point, it does seem like the Dial-A-Ride in Acton is up and running. And I don't want to leave out the many members of our community who don't have the option to stay at home right now and self-isolate. And for these community members, there might be a need for childcare support since several daycare facilities have been closed due to the health and safety measures. So at this point, the mass.gov website, the state website, has collected a list of exempt childcare programs that provide emergency drop-in care designated for specific essential workforces. But if this is something that might be helpful for you, you can find the larger list online at the mass.gov website, or can call the Massachusetts resource line, the 211 resource line, for more information or more general resource information across the state of Massachusetts. So I'm going to pass it over to Carrie at this point to talk about some other resources.
Thank you, Brooke. That was really helpful. As Brooke is saying, this is a really stressful time for so many people. And for a lot of us, we've got children who have returned home or people who are out of work, and we're all kind of on top of each other. As Brooke mentioned, there could be food insecurity, there could be financial insecurity. And another thing that can happen to us in this time of stress is feeling really desperate, feeling a little bit like life's not worth living. And so I want to outline list some resources if that's happening in your family or to someone you know or to yourself. There's a national suicide hotline, and I believe these numbers as I list them will be showing up. So the national suicide hotline, that's 24 hours a day, is 1-800-273-8255. There is some more local hotlines, a Massachusetts Samaritan's hotline. And again, these are all staffed by trained people who can help guide you to a safe place or a safe place in your head. So the Samaritan's Massachusetts line, you can call or text, is 877-870-4673. And again, that's a 24-hour number. For our members of the community who are part of the LGBT community, there is a Trevor hotline, and that is available, I believe, for all ages. And that number is 866-4-U-TREVOR, TREVOR. I should have looked up that number. Or you can text START, START, to 678-678. So that will begin a texting back and forth if you have questions or you're feeling desperate. Another texting option, because a lot of our younger people prefer the texting option, you can text, this is Call to Talk, and it's C2T 741-741. And in addition, each of our communities has a mobile crisis unit. So rather than going to your emergency room, if you or a loved one are feeling really desperate, I think we probably don't want to be going to emergency rooms. So you can call one of our emergency crisis teams. The one for Acton is called Advocates, and their number is 781-893-2003. And I encourage everybody who's worried about themselves or somebody else to start with your local police. If it's looking like it's a real urgent need, I would call your police non-urgent line, and they are staying very up to date on local resources. They always have been, but even more so now. They know who's open and who's available. So I think going to your police, if you're worried about somebody, all emergency services for elders at risk, for children at risk, for people with disabilities at risk, those protective services are open, but they're operating in a different way. So I think I would start with your police if you're worried about a friend or neighbor who seems to be in danger. Similarly, during times like this, there tends to be an increase in domestic violence, and that's very worrisome. If you or someone you know is at risk for domestic violence, or you think this is happening, again, the police is a way to start. There is also a domestic violence hotline that's 1-800-799-7233, or you can text the words "love is" to 22522. I strongly urge people to pay attention to those you think might be at risk, because this is a particularly challenging time for people in those situations. For general support, the NAMI, National Association of Mental Illness, their helpline is up and running, 1-800-950-NAMI. They are still holding their family support groups online. So if you're involved in a family support group, if you call the NAMI number, they can guide you to how to access your family support group online. Substance abuse, AA is offering AA meetings online, and those can be found on the AA website. And what else? There's a general phone number for Massachusetts resources. You can get resource information from 211, sort of like 411 for resource information. Many of you may be feeling like it's a good time to start therapy, and many therapists in the area are doing teletherapy, which is being reimbursed by most health insurances. Different health insurances are doing different things, so it might be helpful to call your health insurance to find out what the new rules are about copays and telehealth being covered. But most therapists in the area are doing telehealth, and to find a therapist in your area, I have a couple ways. Psychology Today Therapy Finder is a great resource, and you can find Psychology Today online, and one of the tabs is Therapy Finder. And another resource, particularly for those people in Acton and Littleton and most surrounding towns, but not all, you can use the William James referral line, and that phone number is 888-244-6843. And that line will gather information about what you're looking for, what your insurance is, any specialty services you might need, and they will find a therapist who is a good match for you. It may take several days or even longer, but that is a resource out there for Acton, Littleton, Concord, but not all residents. So it's good to call and check before you think you can use them. I think if you call your town social worker or your town council on aging, you can get most of this information, if not all of it. Otherwise, stay healthy, stay inside. Thank you. I'm going to pass this on now to Dr. Dorsey.
I'd like to focus on stress and stress management and offer some help around how we can best manage that. Virtually everyone is feeling some degree of stress now, whether you're out of work and you're struggling with the financial stress, whether you've got work, you're working from home, but you're also managing childcare. Maybe you're a healthcare worker dealing with the stress around potential exposure and your family's safety, or maybe you're just struggling with the stress and anxiety of the isolation and living at home. Everyone is feeling the stress at this time, so one of the first things to recognize is that you're not alone. And that while there are things at this time that we can't control, what we can control is how we cope and how we face the challenge. And there are skills you can learn that essentially enable you to build resilience, to withstand the stress that's going on, to cope with it, and to come out stronger on the other side. Resilience is about accepting the stress, adapting to it, and coping with it rather than trying to avoid or suppress it. So don't fall into the temptation that may be there to kind of self-medicate with alcohol or drugs or stay in bed all day, eat junk food. I mean, there's that may be a tendency that happens to some people, but instead shift your focus not to the stress itself, but the things that you can do, not what you don't have control over, but what you do have control over, what you can do and how you can choose to think at this time. And so I want to focus on resilience. There's a lot that we know about resilience, and 4 main components of it that I want to talk about are meaning and purpose, finding meaning and purpose, building connection, taking care of yourself, protecting wellness, and healthy thinking. And there are skills around each of these that anyone can learn. It doesn't matter the degree of stress you're experiencing, the type of stress, whether or not you have pre-existing anxiety or depression, but we can all benefit from learning some of these skills and building on them. And you may already have some of these within you when you think about past times that you've dealt with stress before. So what can you do to build resilience? First, finding purpose. What does that mean? Look for your own resources. A piece of that is being proactive, taking initiative, first asking sort of what are the specific problems I have and what can I do to solve them, breaking it down to sort of the specifics, not thinking of the whole picture, but what are some specific things you can do, and being proactive, taking the initiative not only to look for ideas and opportunities to help solve problems, but also recognizing your resources and the support, some of which Brooke and Carrie mentioned. How can you reach out? It turns out that actually looking for and asking for support and accepting it is empowering, and it's something that helps with resilience. When you address problems, set realistic goals and take small steps, and appreciate your movement towards those steps. Maybe a small thing each day. Again, identify your supports, where they are, how you can use them, and don't wait to seek help. If you are feeling overwhelmed, if you do have a history of anxiety or depression, you're really struggling, don't wait. Just reach out and ask for help. Helping others is also something that gives a sense of purpose and self-worth. Think about how you might reach out and help a friend, family member, even something simple, community. Additionally, engaging in interests that are meaningful to you and for you they both shift the focus from the stress itself. So they're distracting, but more importantly, they're meaningful, so you connect with them and it helps relieve stress, it helps with reduces a feeling of stress because they're meaningful. Just as an example, in the resilience research that was done for NASA, astronauts were asked what was most stressful for them, and it wasn't when they were out in space. It wasn't the potential for a catastrophic event or equipment failure. What stressed them out most was being away from their families and not being able to support them, to connect with them, to help them if they needed it. And what relieved that stress the most was looking out the window back at the Earth and photographing it. So it was an activity that not only took them away from the stress, shifted focus, but it also was very meaningful to them, and it was a stress reliever. So building connections in general is something also that helps to create coping and resilience. Prioritize these connections, meaningful connections with family, with friends, with your community, whatever is meaningful to you. There may be groups that you're connected with, social groups or otherwise, or that you may find new groups online, but try to keep those connections, maybe checking in on a regular schedule and prioritize them. That's something also that helps with coping and relief from some of the stress and builds resilience. Taking care of yourself, both your body and mind, wellness is key at a time like this. So don't neglect the things that you need to do for self-care. Getting enough sleep, exercise we all know is good for you, but it also is good for managing stress. It's something that, especially if you do it outside, it actually has an immunity effect. It improves immunity. It improves mood, helps you manage emotions. It helps improve thinking, improve cognition, and it helps the body heal and recover. If you're outside too, if you can walk, even walking up the driveway or walking around the yard, even 15 minutes of exercise, if you get the vitamin D exposure outside, that also helps with immunity. You can take some initiative, take some steps to move in a healthy direction, losing weight or making some effort to quit smoking. There's more incentive now than ever to try to improve your health. As far as wellness for your mind and what you can do to improve your health and protect your health there, limit exposure to the news. We're all kind of drawn into the changes that are happening so frequently. So listen to the extent that it helps you stay informed and act if you need to, but beyond that, limit it. Maybe check in once or twice a day, but anything beyond that just increases anxiety and makes you feel helpless. So be careful about that. It helps to at the end of the day, let yourself have a few minutes of just a reflection time on what you might have done toward problem solving or accomplishing a task or a goal during the day, thinking about what you still have to do. Recognize where you are with that progress and maybe what you have to do the next day, but then close it down, put it away. If you're writing notes on things, close the notebook, set it aside, and from that time forward, you're off duty. Just let yourself relax. It's helpful to have a routine like that and that involves balance, that involves times when you can engage in activities that are meaningful to you, times when you're working on the problems you're working on, and times to shut it all down and try to just wind down and relax. Especially, it's not helpful to watch the news close to bedtime and take that to bed with you. So set your boundaries and your limits where you need to. Also, yoga, mindfulness, meditation, if those are things that are helpful for you, do those regularly. Set maybe a regular time frame to do them. If it's not something you've tried before, maybe give it a chance. There are many resources online where you can connect to and be guided through some of those activities. Another component, healthy thinking. What does that mean? You can direct your thinking to help you build resilience. And part of that is keeping perspective. If you notice yourself engaging in what we sometimes call distorted thinking, which is something we all do at different times, catastrophizing, thinking continuously about the worst case scenario, or black and white thinking, it's all bad, it's all good. Just catch yourself in that and step back and try to reframe that thinking, put it more in perspective and reality-based. accept again, accept what you can't change, but know that what you can change is how you interpret the stress, what you say to yourself, and how you act on it. You have that control, and what you say to yourself matters. So kind of recognize how you're thinking and what you're saying to yourself. You can be your own best resource in that you can think back to times, we've all had times of stress before. Where did you find your strength? What was helpful for you? What was it that you did that was helpful for you, and who was helpful for you? What are those resources? And you can draw from those again in a time like this. Additionally, you can be creative and think about more opportunities, new opportunities for strength and self-discovery. And know that in tragedy and hardship like this, in times of crisis, that people often report afterwards a greater sense of strength and improved relationships, greater connections from it. So in reaching out and connecting to some of these elements and developing these sorts of resources and skills, you can come out stronger on the other side. Try to stay positive. Try each day. There are specific ways that you can do this, and try them out. These are exercises that are actually known to, if you can do them regularly for 21 days or even a couple of weeks, if you can do them regularly or even parts of them, it improves mood, it improves self-worth, and it also creates more spontaneous positive thinking, which is helpful in a time like this to stay strong. So those elements of positive thinking are recognizing 2 or 3 gratitudes each day. So think about it, dig deep. What are you really grateful for? And it can be something simple like that it was a sunny day and you noticed that spring was coming. You took a walk, or for a family member, for the ability to connect with a friend. But note them and write them down at the end of the day. Similarly, one positive experience a day. Try to create that for yourself, or recognize one. It's likely that there may be one in there, a simple one that happens anyway. But focus on acknowledging that and also recording that at the end of the day. Keep a notebook. What was that positive experience, and why was it positive for you? How was it helpful? It puts your thinking in that direction. You experience that, and it's something that is consoling and helps to build strength and improves mood. A random act of kindness. If you can recognize or create one simple act of kindness each day and reflect on it at the end of the day, that's something also that is both reassuring and can help you by looking outward and helping someone else. It relieves stress, it improves mood and self-worth, and it helps another person. So it's a win-win all the way around. And this is a good time, I think, to segue back to Dr. Knights, who's going to talk about ways that you can do different sorts of volunteerism in the community. There are many ways that you can help. And just to summarize what I just talked about, and the sorts of elements of resilience that you can work toward are finding purpose, building connections, fostering wellness, taking care of yourself, and embracing healthy thoughts, and seeking help if needed. Take care, everyone. Stay healthy and stay strong.
I'm going to talk now about ways to access medical care. As some of you may already realize, physicians are switching over to doing televisits wherever that is possible. So you will be sometimes calling a doctor's office and being told that you need to schedule a televisit after they've screened to see whether or not it's an emergency that needs to be dealt with immediately. There also may be the option of being able to do a video visit at the same time, depending on what your doctor has available and the support staff that they have. You also often have access to your physicians through their internet connections and using a format that's more like an email. At Acton Medical, we have something called Follow My Health, that patients use to communicate with us as well. So if it's not urgent or emergent, you can use that as another way of communicating. And I wanted to talk about refills of medications. When you're contacting your doctor or your pharmacy, you might request that they do a refill for 90 days rather than 30, given the issues that we're having getting medications to patients, and given possible concerns for depleted supplies of your medications. As far as contacting your specialists, some of the specialists have already set up televisits, some have not. If you can't get through to your specialist and you need a refill on a medication the specialist is recommending or is prescribed, please contact your primary care doctor, who might be able to help you in that situation. As far as getting tested for the virus goes, I would recommend checking with your primary care doctor as to whether or not you meet the needs now, meet the requirements now for testing, because those are quite tight and quite rigid at the moment. The local hospital, Emerson Hospital's hotline for this has been overwhelmed and can't handle all the calls that are coming in. So if you would check with your primary care doctor first as to whether or not you would meet those criteria, you will find out that way that you may or may not, and not jam up the hospital hotline. They will screen you again when you do get through to the hotline to see if they agree, but at least you won't be waiting in line as long if people check first with their own doctors. For public health updates, you can go to your official town website and search under COVID-19 or coronavirus, and that will keep you up to date with what's going on in your own town regarding public health. I'd like to go back now to Carrie to talk about how you can help.
Thank you, Dr. Knights. As Dr. Dorsey said, helping others, random acts of kindness, those can be really rewarding and help your own mood. So if you know of a neighbor or somebody in your neighborhood who could use some help, maybe shoveling snow, you know, it would feel good to do that, I think. And also, councils on aging are looking for volunteers. So they need people to help package meals, they need people to help deliver meals. Some of the local councils on aging are trying to match residents with seniors who just need a friendly check-in. So that's an easy way to help. And I'm just going to focus on the Council on Aging because I've spoken to them the most and I know they have a lot of need. Something else you can do if you're healthy is donate blood. You can go on the Red Cross website. I know there are 2 drives going on. The closest ones I know of are Chelmsford and Sudbury. But they are always looking for donors. So any way you think you can help, any random act of kindness would probably feel good. So thank you for all of your community efforts.
In closing, I would like to thank our wonderful panel for sharing their valuable knowledge in this difficult time. I'd like also to thank Mark Ducci and ActonTV for editing and producing this video. Have courage and take care. Together we'll get through this difficult time.